With Theresa May, it's the tension. It's the kind of, I want to smile, but the rest of my face won't let me.
And with Liz Truss, when Liz Truss first appeared talking about pork markets,
It was like a little girl whose daddy had always told her she was funny. It is very important to prick pomposity. There's also a very, very important aspect. You've got to have a laugh. To be able to laugh gives people back the power in a way. And I sort of think, yeah, have some of that.
Hello and welcome to Ways to Change the World. I'm Krishnan Guru-Murthy, and this is the podcast in which we talk to extraordinary people about the big ideas in their lives and the events that have helped shape them. My guest today is Jan Ravens, one of the UK's most celebrated impressionists and comedians. Jan first discovered comedy at Cambridge University's Footlights Society, where she made history as the first female president. From there, she helped shape the landscape of UK impression-based comedy on both radio and TV, with a career spanning over 3 decades. Jan's razor-sharp comedic talent has made her a household name. Now she's perhaps best known for her work on the hit Radio 4 show Dead Ringers, where her impressions of figures like Theresa May, Liz Truss, Margaret Thatcher, and others have become iconic. And Dead Ringers are on a 25th anniversary tour, which Jan is part of for the next few months. Welcome and thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we start this usually by asking people how you want to change the world.
Wow, that's a big question.
Which is a big question.
I guess it would be nice for there to be more honesty. I mean, particularly in politics, and for people to feel allowed to be honest. I think part of the trouble with politics now is that the news media is such a kind of constant scrutiny that people are kind of trying to second guess, what the public might think. And it's like the thick of it. They're constantly trying to coming up with the right quote. And I sort of feel that, well, on the one hand, that level of scrutiny has meant that maybe some of the people that should have gone into politics aren't going into politics because they can't be doing with all that. And on the other hand, I think very often you get politicians, and when you see them debating things in the Commons and you think, gosh, he's got a lot of good ideas, or, she's right about that, and then they become leader or prime minister even, and all of a sudden the machine of the party kind of descends upon them, and they're like a rabbit in the headlights. They can't sort of, make that comment that they would have made before.
More honesty would be problematic for satirists, wouldn't it? Or...
Well, I don't think so, because presumably, people would be freer, and so people would be saying, as well as, there would be maybe a bigger range of opinion and policy, because, so it might actually be better for satirists.
I mean, I enjoy your Ed Miliband nasal twang.
Well, yeah, the Labour Party is like, because like I do Rachel Reeves, who has this miserable adenoidal sort of quality, and, and Keir Starmer has this earnest, miserable adenoidal. And Angela Rayner has got the sort of northern version of it, kind of done the hard yards, I don't suffer fools, dye my own hair over the bath, and she's got that going on. It's like the Labour Party's like a sort of nursery school where there's always a cold going round.
Just going round.
It's like, what's happening here? But yes, they're all very miserable and adenoidal, but, not surprising.
He had an operation, Ed Miliband, didn't he? I think on his sinuses, and he's certainly changed his style, where he has a lot more fun. I think, with his videos. Do you like that? Do you like seeing politicians playing with comedy?
I haven't seen Ed Miliband's comedy videos, I have to say. It's very difficult because so much. Not just because of satirists, but I think it's very difficult for politicians when so much of it these days is about presentation. Back in the day, you'd have people like Anne Widdecombe, you still have got Anne Widdecombe, but, people now, you that sort of wobbly voice, and, you had people like Claire Short with her clenched teeth, because Tony Blair had wired her mouth together so she couldn't make any more indiscreet remarks about Iraq. But now everybody's kind of blandified, people kind of...
They get screened out, don't they?
Yeah,
the
people are kind of cloned. And so, luckily there are still, characters like well, there's lots of characters, but there are fewer of them.
Well, I was going to say, we've come through a period where we had Theresa May and Liz Truss and these big women leaders. Are we in a rather male-dominated period right now? Or are there enough people in the front line for you still to have work?
Yes, it's. There's always work. There's always something, and I think people like Theresa May and certainly Liz Truss have had enough of an impact that Liz. It's very funny. We have a sort of a sort of theoretical laugh-ometer on our tour show where there are certain lines, certain moments that are just going to get an absolute woofer. And you're doing these 2,000 and 3,000 seat theatres, and this enormous wave of laughter comes over at you. And one of them is when Liz Truss appears, because I always like it when Liz Truss appears in sketches that aren't about Liz Truss. So that we do a sketch which is like a parody of Baby Reindeer, and so the guy starts narrating, she was always strange looking, but and she was this strange character in the corner, and I just said to her, you've got a nice smile. And that was when it started. She turned round and looked at me and said, "I know!" And everyone goes, "Whoa!" And there she is. And so there's all.
There's a longevity to those people, even though they've gone.
Well, and also Liz Truss won't shut up. She has absolutely no. She's honest. When her book came out, I was asked to go on a couple of podcasts, and literally this book came out and I did not have to parody it. I just read out sentences from, how to change the world. What is it? Save the world or something. How to save the West. 10 years to save the West, her book's called. Hubris or what? It's kind of extraordinary. Oh, yes, Liz Truss, you're the person that we want to find out, how we're going to save the West from.
And is Theresa May the same?
No.
In terms of longevity and sort of comedy value, do people...
Comedy value, yeah. I do. I still do Theresa May. The way the Dead Ringers tour works is that it's been going for 25 years, on and off, but mainly on. And so there's a screen at the back, and so the year comes up where the sketch is set. So the Theresa May sketch is about her kind of I know that you want a Brexit deal, and I talk about her diplophonic voice, this kind of voice where she's doing her own desk count the whole time, and people love it, and I think.
Your Theresa May is uncanny, I think. It's extraordinarily accurate.
Yeah, and it's
because impressions don't always have to be accurate, do they? You capture the sort of
Liz Truss is a caricature. It's overblown, and there is something about her. I think with Theresa May and Liz Truss are quite interesting because I think I flatter myself, I suppose, in thinking that that my impression of them portrays their tragic flaw. And with Theresa May, it's the tension. It's the kind of, I want to smile, but the rest of my face won't let me, and that was her sort of downfall as a politician, really, was that she had no play. She had no kind of, guys, can we just have a chat in my office about this thing that I want to get through? Because I think, the guys, there was a lot of misogyny in the way she was treated, I think, like when you used to see film of her at Brexit negotiations, she got cold-shouldered, and her tension, and the total way she held herself, and that was the kind of the comedy of the impression, and also, partly why she failed. And with Liz Truss, when Liz Truss first appeared, at the 2014 Tory conference, sort of talking about pork markets, and then kind of looking round, for laughter and applause. And what is she doing? Her timing, she just had these huge, chasms of space where she was just waiting for people to laugh and applaud. Like this, my sort of take on it was like she was like a little girl whose daddy had always told her she was funny. Because it was just sort of like, sort of like this the whole time. And
so she's super confident then.
super confident, totally untrammeled by self-doubt. And from people, I occasionally have met people who have worked with her, and they say, she wouldn't listen. And actually, that's clear in her book. She said, well, I said to them, that this was the. I mean, you sort of think, God, she's really quite sure. She's very, very sure of herself. And, when all the evidence is to the contrary, it's just sort of like, la, 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 la.
and at the moment, I mean, obviously you've got big figures, although some of them, Angela Rayner's kind of disappeared for a while.
Yeah, but she'll be back, I think.
But she might be back, I suppose.
And there's Kemi.
Well, I was going to say, what is it in Kemi that is the tragic flaw or whatever that you can expose?
I don't know, because what we characterise her on Dead Ringers as a low energy weirdo, because I think the trouble about Kemi is that she hasn't really cut across, with Angela Rayner or Liz Truss or these characters, they cut through.
Yeah.
I mean, not as my characters, as them.
Even though Liz Truss was only in power for days.
Yeah.
Yes,
But she had been, the Environment Secretary, the Foreign Secretary. I mean, her being Foreign Secretary, that was the sort of like,
I'm going to be your representative around the world,
And that was when I thought of the thing, I know! It's kind of like, can you believe I'm representing our country to the world?
How long does it take you, though, to get a impression, or does it just depend on the person?
It really.
I know Rory Bremner has told me about how he sometimes has to work on things for a long time before he feels he's got it right.
It really, really varies. I mean, somebody like Liz Truss, like I said, she sort of like leapt out. And, somebody like Fiona Bruce, I remember seeing Fiona Bruce, glimmering and shimmering at the camera, reading the news. You know how to read the news, don't you? Just put your lips together and blow, And people like that just sort of suggest that their character is there right from the beginning. But Theresa May, when we first started thinking we should be doing Theresa May, she's Home Secretary, I just couldn't get her. And I'd sort of try all these cliches that she used to use, and that didn't sort of work. But partly the reason why it didn't work was that she was very invisible as Home Secretary. She'd send, her junior minister out to read out the immigration figures and that kind of thing. And she sort of like, basically what she was doing was like, laid low and waited for the posh boys to screw it up, which they duly did. Yeah. And in she went.
So is there the same problem with Kemi Badenoch? There's not a lot to get hold of at the moment.
There's not a lot. There's that sort of, the O sound. Yeah. But she's sort of not getting it. And she's not very good at the sort of back and forth either. So yeah, I haven't really got I personally don't find the low energy weirdo thing that we're doing that the script writers have come up with. I mean, and the script writers, we are so blessed, #blessed with our script writers, because they keep on coming up with amazing material, even for issues that you sort of think, oh my God, what are we going to find to say about this? And they manage to come up with brilliant stuff. But I don't find the low energy weirdo thing a satisfying sort of comic caricature.
It's not quite where she is now either, because she's trying to be the opposite of that. She's trying to be sort of much more in the thick of it. But I suppose the trouble with her is that you might spend a year getting her right.
Yes.
And then she might be gone.
Yeah. Well, you have to, you just have to prepare for that, really. And
but that must be infuriating, mustn't it? When people.
Well, yes, it is.
I mean, Liz Truss could have, gone on forever, and
but she
had
does.
Amazing, and she does anyway, I suppose. Yeah.
As a comic character, she's almost.
It's very interesting how that happens. I mean, I grew up with Mike Yarwood on the TV, and I remember in the 80s, Mike Yarwood was still doing Harold Wilson and Ted Heath. Years and years after they were gone from the political scene, yet they still had purchase.
Yes, and I guess that was also because he'd created those characters, and like Dennis Healy going, "What a silly Billy," and all that kind of thing, because he'd created those characters, and also everybody was watching Mike Yarwood. The audience wasn't so fragmented, and so everybody caught on to his characters and loved them. Doing a tour that celebrates 25 years, it's like being a sort of rock band on tour in a way, and that people want you to play the hits.
Yeah.
You know, don't try any of your new characters here, mate.
Just give us what we know.
Yeah, come on, do your Charlotte Green, you know. And a lot of the Radio 4 audience love things about Radio 4. So, you know, we're doing sketches about the Archers and, you know, the continuity announcers and Poetry Please and, you know, all those well-loved Radio 4 programs.
So that takes me to what the purpose of the satire is.
Yeah.
And how subversive you really want it to be. Mm-hmm. Because if you're doing, I mean, you know, you might think, well, if you're doing satire on Radio 4, which is pillar of the establishment, is it satire that's designed to amuse in a gentle way for a well-heeled audience, or is it supposed to actually rough things up a bit?
Well, I think in an ideal world, it would do both. And I think there are elements of it that definitely do ruffle things up a bit. I mean, there's quite a few things that you think, oh my God, we're never going to get that through.
I'm amazed
lawyers.
often at what you do get away with on Dead Ringers. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's great. And it's, I mean, you know, part of your question is like, you're doing it for this well-heeled audience. I mean, the nice thing would be is like if other people find it. And I think in the world of podcasts and, being able to get it at any point on BBC Sounds, I think it does get a younger audience and, more people kind of absorb it in that way.
But some satirists are quite angry about the world. And I never get the sense that as satirists, Dead Ringers is angry. I think it's kind of, it sees the fun and it sees the humour.
I think I can't speak for the whole team. I mean, I think there is a lot of anger there, but anger isn't funny. And I think, I mean, there are some things that we've done. I mean, and Bill Dare, the creator and producer, who we sadly lost earlier this year, really, really tragically. Sometimes things, we'd do a thing and it wouldn't get that many laughs, but he'd say, it hasn't got that many laughs, but this is, it's important that we do this. This is satirical. And I think, part of the point of satire, people talk very kind of pompously about satire, and I do myself, in fact, but and I think, it is very important to prick pomposity and to, there's this brilliant quote by Jessica Mitford, which is, I think, I'm probably slightly paraphrasing, but it's like, we may not be able to change the world, but at least we can embarrass the guilty.
Yeah.
And I sort of think, yeah, have some of that, and to embarrass it, to point things up in a different way that people might not have thought about them. I mean, obviously, some of it is caricature and it's overblown, and there's a danger of, if you're making, Donald Trump or Boris Johnson into this, buffoon of a character, are you kind of inuring the public to the sort of malevolence of their their intention or their effect. And, that there may be something in that. But I think there's also a very, very important aspect to maybe satire or maybe what we do, depending on how much you think the two cross over, which is that we've got to have a laugh. To be able to laugh sort of gives people back the power in a way. Gives you something where you can go, yeah, I'm gonna have a laugh at you. And I mean, as Thora Hird used to say, the gift of laughter is a wonderful thing. God bless us. And actually, it's been so moving going around the country and these huge audiences just loving it. There's a huge, and it's bigger than sort of the four of us doing the show. It's like it's the thing. It's Dead Ringers. It's this thing that they love and that has been with them, and often kids have been brought up on it,
Yeah.
and they just love it, and they love being allowed to laugh. And as you say, they love that thing of, my God, how did they get away with that? And maybe we get away with it a bit more because it's on the radio, not the telly, because people say, oh, there's not enough satire on the telly. And I mean, we did do Dead Ringers on the telly for 7 years. And
Why did that stop?
well, quite a lot of comedy series sort of have their time. They don't last. I mean, things like sort of Goodness Gracious Me, or, all sorts of comedy series don't. I mean, Have I Got News for You is an exception to that rule.
But if it lasts 25 years on the radio, then why is TV different?
Because it's so much more expensive. So much more expensive. So much more labor intensive. I mean, when we were doing Dead Ringers, we'd have a 3 or 4 week location filming period where we'd film all the sketches that were like program parodies that weren't topical. And then we'd have a week in the studio writing and rehearsing the topical stuff. That was sketches about the things that had happened that week. And then on the night, so I'd be doing like Fiona Bruce, and the headlines, the news lines would come in, and I would sort of be reading them on the auto cue, like as they were coming in, kind of thing. And so they were like last thing on I can't remember what night it was now, but so the next day, it would be edited, and then the following day.
It's very resource intensive.
Yeah. And I would spend longer in makeup than I did on the set, because a lot of the makeups, that trying to look like people is really hard. And then also you get people saying, well, you don't look very much like them, and so they're sort of distracted by the fact that you're not quite exactly looking like them.
But this has been a sort of a trend in TV generally, isn't it, with TV comedy, and that there does seem to be less of it that is very successful.
Yeah.
And people always, the commissioners always say how expensive it is, especially if it doesn't work.
Yeah, because the sketch is like, a minute long, 2 minutes long. You've got a set, you've got the costumes, you've got the makeup, you've got setups and lighting, and, it's... it's really labour intensive and very expensive.
So where do you think the sort of the present and future of comedy is? Is it on stage as a stand-up, or is it on social media, or a bit of both?
Well, I guess it is on social media. I mean, I sort of can't be doing with that, but I mean, I know that lots of comedians have, made a huge success because of TikTok and Instagram and stuff, and that's brilliant and good for them. But I think it's hugely in live work. I mean, lots of production companies and agencies are saying to their clients, you've got to get out there, because that's, people are hungry for it. I mean, Dead Ringers have been on tour. We were on doing a show in York. 2 days later, Rory Bremner arrives and does his show in York. I mean, there's a huge appetite. The Fast Show are on tour.
Everyone's touring, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, not just comedians. It's like there's a big live theatre thing with politicians and serious figures and TV presenters.
Yes, exactly. People sort of say, an evening with, where they're
people are obviously spending money and going to see things.
Yes, I think that maybe, we have been sort of locked into our screens too much. And so the live experience is, it's a fantastic thing. It's because it's, there's nothing like it. It's a really exciting thing. And also, like on our show, we're doing it like a radio recording. So we're standing in front of microphones with a script like we would be in the Broadcasting House Theatre, But of course, we're corpsing, we're screwing up, we're doing improvised bits, and then we do bits about how we do impressions and which are our favourite ones. And, so there's all sorts of bits that are kind of added on to that are only happening when you're in that theatre right at that moment, and that's so exciting.
You've got an insight into the new generation as well, because your son Alfie Brown, of course, is a very successful comedian. I mean, do you see a difference in the way the new generation are performing and mapping out their careers, or has it essentially stayed the same?
God, no, it hasn't stayed the same at all. I mean, for younger comedians, the pressure is on to be on social media. You seem to sort of like see people, they come into your Instagram feed, and then all of a sudden, they're playing huge theatres. You think, how did that happen? And it happens because you've seen it on your phone, and so have, thousands of other people. So
social media is the marketing tool, but live shows is where the money is.
Well, I mean, I don't know. There obviously is money in telly. if you can get on. And people on Have I Got News for You, or I mean, there people are making money doing comedy programs, but maybe there's just fewer of them. I mean, and yes, and also I think people do make money on social media, don't they? Because they get sponsored and all that. I mean, I've got a younger son who's also doing comedy bits on TikTok, and and he does a podcast, and it's all about getting sponsors and all that.
And are you doing what you always wanted to do? I mean, how did you become, or why did you become an impressionist?
Well,
did you grow up as a girl thinking,
no,
that's what I want to do?
No, I wanted to be. I wanted to be Glenda Jackson. Glenda Jackson came from this town on the Wirral where I come from, Hoylake, and Glenda was out there being Elizabeth R and being at the RSC and in Oscar-winning movies and all that. And I sort of thought, oh my God, if Glenda can do it, I can. And so I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to. I mean, and I am an actress, and I've done all that. I don't do so much anymore. But I have, and I do kind of, if you're going to sort of have regrets, I kind of think, well, I wish I had done more of that. I wish I hadn't got so sort of not sidetracked by the comedy, but I'm just naturally a funny person, and I'm naturally a piss taker, I suppose. And that's part of what being an impressionist is. It's having that kind of a bit of a sense of mischief and a sense of being slightly a watcher. And whilst I enjoy that, I also love, the opportunity to be in a Shakespeare play, or to do a new play by David Edgar or something, to immerse yourself in a world, and the headspace of another character, and to work with poetry and beautiful language, that nourishes a different part of you. And I
because you did do Shakespeare, didn't you?
Yeah.
The RSC.
Yes, well done.
But
yes.
I suppose that it's important to know what you're really good at as well.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there are so many brilliant actors, but there aren't many people that can do what I do. And I suppose what I do, the impressions thing is like my USP. And I have now got a reputation of, being pretty good at it. And there are some, things people say, well, can you do this? And I go, well, I'm not sure how well I can do it, but I'm pretty sure that there's nobody that could do it. That people might be able to do it as well, but I'm pretty sure that nobody could do it better. I mean, not with every voice, because we've all got different timbres and different ranges and everything. But yeah, I feel pretty confident about impressions. I don't get nervous about it anymore. I know I'm pretty good at it.
And do people come to you and say, can you do such and such a person, or do you decide who you're going to do and then the writers work around that?
Well, yeah, a bit of both. I mean, because a lot of the time, with Fiona Bruce, when we were doing the telly show, I think, and I said, oh my God, have you seen Fiona Bruce reading the news? And so we did this whole, series of sketches on Fiona Bruce, kind of, I mean, it was, and I didn't want her to be a sort of a sex object. I wanted her to be like,
Yeah, she loves it, doesn't she?
And do, come at me if you dare, kind of thing, And
but your news impressions are surprising in a way, because I suppose my generation, these are all my generation of people, and I think of our generation as very, sort of homogenized.
Yeah.
We're not people who kind of have absurd characteristics or mannerisms on the whole, but you found the things that are distinctive.
Yeah, Kirsty
about various
Warwick.
different people.
Yeah. I mean, I think Rory. I mean, because I'm doing these some shows with him at the moment, and he did want to be an impressionist. He loved the voices, and he loved doing the sports commentators, and kind of that was what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a funny voice person. And Lewis MacLeod is the same. And John Culshaw got into it through sort of being a DJ and doing comedy bits as a DJ. But But no, I wanted to be an actor. And then, when I was at Cambridge, I auditioned for plays in my first term and, Jacobean comedies and Shakespeare and Restoration and all this. And then, got into the Footlights and then that sort of took over.
How, I mean, you were the first female president of the Footlights. How difficult was it to be that?
Really
and how big
difficult.
a deal was it at the time?
Really difficult. I mean, it was like, because I thought if I screw this up, they're never going to get another one. Because I had this sort of series of, so I was the first female president of Footlights. Then I was the first woman to direct the Footlights Review the year after, because I directed Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie and Emma Thompson.
And I suppose we should explain what a big deal Footlights was as well in those days, because, I mean, it had spawned...
Well, yes, so
many famous people.
Monty Python, and that was the week that was, and lots of they were all from Oxford and Cambridge. I mean, but yes, Footlights was a huge deal, and continues to be. I mean, Nick Mohammed was in Footlights. It carries on, and different years have more successful than others, and all that, but. I mean, the year that I was directing it, Stephen Fry, Hugh Laurie, Emma Thompson, Tony Slattery. I mean,
wow.
Amazing, absolutely amazing, and quite terrifying. So the first woman to direct it. So, oh my God, And then, as a result of that, I got offered a job at the BBC as a radio comedy producer, which was a very well-trodden path for all sorts of blokes from Cambridge who'd been in Footlights or director of Footlights. And again, I was the first woman, and apparently the head of department, it was like the golf club, the BBC at that point, and sort of, now look here, the head of department, who was called Bobby J, and he was sort of, you could always imagine him in the RAF, in the officers' mess. Look here, we're going to have, a female producer, so we might have to tread a bit carefully at certain times of the month, And it was sort of like all these guys, what? But yes, it was a lot of pressure. And actually I kind of I stayed about 18 months, I think, as a producer. And because I kind of knew that I really wanted to perform. I mean, I really wanted to act, because when I left Cambridge, I left at the same time as Sandy Toksvig. Sandy and I had been in the Footlights together. And she got a job in rep at sort of Exeter Theatre, Northcote Theatre in Exeter. And I was so jealous, because that was what I really wanted to do. And of course, there were not that many rep theatres with a rep company where you did different plays. And, it was such a good training. And now, I mean, that you can count, I think, on the fingers of one hand, even if the amount of, rep companies that there are. I mean, we're talking about how live theatre, but actual theatre, theatres that, sustain a repertory company and put on production after production, on a month-by-month basis, hardly exists at all.
And do you think the fact that we are now in an age where people are older and staying in their jobs and high profile for longer means that you'll be able to carry on doing this for as long as you want? Or do you think... oh, maybe I need to pivot back to drama?
I would pivot back to drama if anybody gave me a bloody job. But, it's like, I think particularly when, you do get pigeonholed. And I think particularly when you're an impressionist, people, because of being a kind of a mischief, a kind of lord of misrule, kind of, jester, you're a watcher, you're an observer. So I think people are a bit sort of circumspect sometimes about whether you can actually act. And... but like I say, I'm not, it's a slight sort of regret. But, I mean, when I think about what Dead Ringers has brought to my life, in terms of, the longevity of it, and also the other opportunities it's given me. I've hosted documentaries. I've been on, I was on Strictly. I was, all sorts of things that happened because of it that would never have happened without it. And just the... I
imagine you laugh more than most people, don't you?
Yeah. Well,
which is quite a bonus.
Yeah. Oh, God. I mean, laughter is so important. I mean, like I say, satire is important, but laughter is so important.
I mean, do you think of it as therapy? I sort of use comedy like that sometimes. Me and my wife actually will sometimes say, you know what, we need to go and see some comedy just to kind of cheer ourselves up.
Yeah. I mean, but do you think? Do you think topical comedy does cheer you up in that sense? I mean, do you think? I mean, that's what I'm
Yes.
saying. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. Because especially, even if the news is very dark,
Yeah.
that's the point of topical. I think it's just the physical reaction of laughter
Yeah.
that makes you feel better. It doesn't matter what you're laughing at.
Yeah.
If you laugh,
Yeah.
you will feel better.
Yeah.
And that's why we sometimes go, you know what, we just need to book some live comedy and go
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
And we will feel better in a couple of weeks'
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So I presume you laugh while you're doing it.
Yes. I mean,
Does doing comedy make you happy as a person? Rather than the old cliche of
the miserable comic.
The miserable comic.
Well, I suppose I can only. I mean, we all have said, the four of us doing the live show, doing this tour, has been the most fun, and we still enjoy each other's performances, and we can still laugh at and with each other. And obviously there are bits where you think, oh, here we go, we're going to do this bit again. But there are other bits where, it's still, and to hear how much the audience is loving it. I mean, like I said, we played these huge theatres. We're doing a week more of gigs in January, culminating at the London Palladium. We're doing another tranche of gigs in March, all sorts of theatres all over the country. And the demand for it seems to just go on and on. It's extraordinary. And I think, people want to laugh. And like I say, they do want to laugh at, what's going on in the world.
Well, let's hope they carry on.
Yeah.
Hope that you carry on letting us.
Yeah.
Jan Ravens, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
And that was Ways to Change the World. You can watch all of these interviews on the Channel 4 News YouTube channel. Until next time, bye-bye.